Hey everyone, and welcome. So, we usually think about wealth with big numbers, right? But what if it's more about how it shapes the very ground we walk on? Today, we're diving into this fascinating question of why some really rich places feel rich and others, well, just don't. And to get us started, let's kick things off with a pretty simple question. So, just how many millionaires do you think there are walking around on planet Earth? Go on, take a guess. Because this number, it's actually the key to a much, much bigger story about how our societies are fundamentally built. The answer? It's about 60 million. That's the number of people with a net worth of at least 1 million US dollars. It's a huge club, and believe me, it is growing fast. Okay, but what if we get a little more exclusive? Let's look at people with at least $10 million. Suddenly, that number plummets, all the way down to just 2.3 million. I mean, that is a tiny, tiny sliver of the world's population. We're talking about 0.03%. And at the very, very top of that pyramid, you've got the billionaires. And there are only about 3,000 of them in the entire world. It's an unbelievably small group of people with, let's be honest, a massive impact on all of our lives. But here's the thing, and this is so important, that 0.03%, they don't live evenly spread out across the globe. No, they cluster. They gather in these global hubs. You know the places, London, New York, Singapore. And this creates this wild illusion. If you're in one of those cities, it feels like the super rich are everywhere, even though they're a tiny fraction of humanity. Which finally brings us to the big puzzle for today. Denmark is an incredibly wealthy country. It's one of the richest in the world. But when you're actually there, all that flashy, concentrated wealth, it just seems to vanish. It's gone. So what on earth is going on? And it's not like the money isn't there. I mean, look at this. In a country of less than 6 million people, Denmark has more than 376,000 millionaires. The wealth exists, for sure. It's just hidden. So the real question becomes, how can so much money be so completely invisible? Okay, so here's our first big clue, and it's a huge one. It turns out there are two fundamentally different ways of structuring wealth in a society. In a place like the US, it's all about visible capital, money you have right now, liquid assets you can spend. But in Denmark, it's a totally different game. It's about deferred wealth, assets that are locked up, out of sight, until later in life. So how does this whole deferred wealth thing actually work? Well, it's pretty simple, and it's powerful. Denmark has a mandatory pension system. A big chunk of every single paycheck, we're talking 12 to 18%, gets automatically funneled into investment funds. Over a lifetime, this builds up a massive amount of wealth. But you can't touch it. It's completely illiquid, making people seem way less rich on paper than they truly are. It's almost like every single citizen has their own personal endowment fund, just waiting for them. But it's not just about the financial plumbing. There's a cultural software running on top of that hardware, and it's called Janteloven, or the Law of Jante. This is a deep, deep cultural code that basically says, don't think you're special. It strongly discourages showing off your success, or especially your money. It's a huge social faux pas. And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? Denmark doesn't lack rich people. It lacks permission to look rich. You combine that invisible pension wealth with a culture that actively shames anyone for showing it off, and you end up with a society that's rich, but where nobody has the social license to act like it. And if you zoom out, you see this reflects a totally different philosophy about society itself. The US model is all about the genius hero. It's a high-variance system. It bets on the outliers, the lone geniuses, and celebrates them. Denmark, though, it bets on the competent team. It's a low-variance system that values reliable, competent institutions over flashy individual stars. But you know what? As important as money and culture are, they're still not the full story. The most profound difference, the thing that really ties this all together, is something much more physical. It's about space. It's about the literal physical design of society. And this is really the heart of it all. You can think of it as two different geometries of society. The US is largely engineered for insulation. The more wealth you have, the more you can separate yourself, with private cars, gated communities, exclusive clubs. But Denmark, it's designed for encounter. Wealth just doesn't buy you that same level of invisibility, because the society is physically built to force people from all walks of life to bump into each other. And this isn't just some abstract idea, it's real life. In Denmark, pretty much everyone, from the royal family down to a student, shares the same stuff. The same supermarkets, the same public schools, the same city squares and bike paths. You have this constant, unavoidable contact with people who aren't like you, which makes it a lot harder to see them as other. Now, the flip side of that, a society built for insulation, has some really brutal consequences. And this quote just hits you like a ton of bricks. When every public space becomes commercialized, when benches are designed to be uncomfortable, when loitering becomes a crime, you get a situation where if you don't have money to spend, you literally have no place to just be. And that leads us to the final and maybe the most important idea of all. It's about a fundamental choice every society makes. Do you focus on controlling what people do in a public space, or do you focus on controlling who gets to be in that space in the first place? And here it is, the thesis in a single sentence. Denmark controls behavior. The US controls presence. Denmark trusts people to share a space and only steps in if someone causes harm. The US, by contrast, often preemptively controls who is even allowed to exist in that space, usually based on their ability to pay. Let's just break that down one more time. In the Danish model, the basic rule is don't harm others. Everyone is presumed to have a right to be there. Public space is for being. In the US model, the unspoken rule is often don't exist without a commercial purpose. Your right to be in a space is conditional on you buying something. Public space is for doing. And so all of this leaves us with a really big question to chew on. What's the real measure of a society's wealth? Is it about the height of its tallest skyscrapers and biggest private fortunes? Or is it about the quality, the richness, and the accessibility of the spaces that we all get to share? Something to think about. Thanks so much for watching.